Hey, what's good, y'all? It's your boy JD6 here. I'm with my man. Shout out to KC Sports Authority. Make sure y'all go check that podcast out, man.
You heard the man. What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of the KC Sports Authority podcast, where, of course, you can find us over on Spotify, where you can listen on the go. You can also rate the podcast with a 5-star review. That would be appreciated. Or you can check us out right over here on YouTube, where you can watch and subscribe to the show. A little over 660 subscribers, and we are so grateful for every single one of you who have supported us so far. And if you love supporting us, then make sure you hit that like button and thumbs up after every episode. Some more Kansas City sports fans can find us on our way to 1,000 subscribers. And if you haven't, send the podcast to a buddy that you think would love checking us out. You can also hit us up on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at KCSA Pod. Well, Chris, we are in almost the middle of summer now, as we're starting to get into the hotter months where NBA finals are wrapping up. College sports are kind of on a standstill until we get closer to school. Football's right around the corner. OTAs are finishing up. But right here in the Kansas City area, I know we just had the Chiefs ring ceremony, but all eyes are really on the Royals right now, as they are in what most people are calling a gauntlet of a schedule. The last 3 weeks, they've faced basically nothing but guys at the top of the division. They are on a stretch of 6-11 in their last 17 against some of these best teams in the league, some of them playoff teams, some of them division leaders right now, and they're still in the middle of it. This is at the time of this recording, we are 1 game into the Dodgers series. They've got 2 more in that, and then they still have to face the Rangers again during this stretch, and then Cleveland one more time during the stretch. So it's been a challenging last 3 weeks, I think, for the Royals. You know, they've probably slid back a little bit more to earth on the national level as far as what people were expecting them. But what's kind of been your evaluation of them against this top-end talent?
I think it's great. I think they've been better than people are giving them credit for. Like, I know the record is terrible, and at the end of the day, that's all that matters. But, like, take out the 2 Yankee games, Tuesday, Wednesday, where they got destroyed. It was like 4-2 the first day, and they should have won both games of the Cleveland series. They should have won. They should have probably swept the Mariners. You know, the Twins games were pretty competitive for the most part, with the tying or winning run at the plate at 2 of those 3 losses in the 9th inning. Like, they have been competitive in all of these games outside of 2 Yankee games. They've lost 4-3 to the Dodgers, where Mookie and Freddie Freeman come through late. Like, that's just going to happen. So yes, they've come back down to earth. The record isn't quite as sparkling as we want it to be, but they're still 9 over 500. After this stretch, they've got like 3 with the Yankees, 3 with the Phillies, 3 with the Braves. And that's about it, other than divisional opponents that have tough games on the schedule. It lightens up a lot. I know they're still going to have to play the Rangers and some of these other teams that had underperformed, but as far as like actual tough competition, there's like 3 series left after they get there. Like, they're getting it all out of the way now. So the fact that they never given up, and they've been competitive in 90% of them, I feel pretty confident about it.
Yeah, and I think coming into this stretch, nationally, there was the talk of, are the Royals legit? You know, they were a hot team the first stretch of the season, but they were playing a lot of average to sub-average teams. So we finally got this first look at, can the Royals compete with quality pitching and quality talent? And that's nothing that they've done throughout the early part of the season. This last stretch, they've gone up against some of the best pitching staffs in all of baseball, some of the top end bullpens in the league as well. And they've actually performed fairly well. You know, the offense has slowed a little bit, as to be expected when you face top end talent. Same way when teams have to go out and face Reagans. It's typically a lower scoring game against really good pitchers. So I think if you look at just the record, yeah, it looks a little disappointing. Under 500, we've kind of slipped in the rankings there. We slid behind Cleveland a couple more games, but the product on the field, just about every game except for maybe those 2 Yankee games, which, goodness gracious, man, they're just them and Baltimore are just on a tear offensively, and the Dodgers. But outside of that, the product on the field hasn't really been that disappointing, considering the quality of opponents we've been going up against. At least that's been my opinion.
And they haven't dipped in standings at all. Like, they started this as the second wild card, and they're probably, can't remember exactly at this moment where the Twins are, but after Sunday, they're still probably going to be the second wild card. And so, like, if you look at it that way, they're still in a good spot, and they've got games against the Twins and the Red Sox and the Rangers and the Tigers, all those teams below that are trying to get back into it. So, again, they're in a good spot. Again, it's been tough, but could you imagine telling anyone they're going to be 40-31 this deep into the season? Like, every single one of us would have signed up for it. So, they do have expectations now, but let's take a deep breath and just see what happens once they get past this.
Yeah, and I think one of the bright spots in this stretch has been maybe a couple of the comeback games, against Seattle, coming back late down. I remember texting you, "Oh my gosh, what a hot start. Royals are down 7-0 after the first inning." And then I said, "Watch, this will be the game the Royals somehow figure out how to put up 8 runs and come back and win." And sure enough, they did. So it's been one of those that maybe, again, outside of those 2 Yankee games, it feels like we're never really out of it, that the team has the ability to fight back. And I think the only time I really didn't feel that was maybe, despite it being a low scoring game, that Monday night game against the Yankees, where the Royals basically put out their C- lineup. A couple guys were injured, a couple guys were off. Renfroe gets hurt later in the game, so they didn't have their best lineup on the field, and they still managed to hold the Yankees to 4 runs and put up 2 themselves. But this is a team that seems to have a lot of fight in them and doesn't just give up and roll over like Royals teams in the past. So I think from a fan perspective, that's a good sign of confidence that the Royals are right in it. And I think it also showed in the attendance. That was another question. April, May, June, the question was, how come these hot Royals can't get the seats filled more than 12 to 18,000 on a decent night? Well, as the season started picking up and the high quality opponents came in, starting with that San Diego series, you saw butts in the seats. And the Yankee series, I'm sure there were a lot of actual Yankees fans there too, but the stadium's been filling in. I think we've been seeing a lot more support from the fan base, because I think they also believe that this team is legit, because we've got an MVP candidate in Bobby Witt Jr., who is one of the hottest hitters in baseball. Just ended his 14-game hitting streak, unfortunately, last night. But considering he's been going up against some of the top teams in the league, and he's been having that on-base streak continue through, that's been a great sign to see. Salvi was kind of quiet during parts of this last stretch, but other guys in the lineup started to get going a little bit. We finally saw MJ get a couple decent hits. Renfroe also had a couple good games here and there. Nelson Velazquez a couple of games here. So I think we're starting to see that this team is coming together outside of just your 2 stars and Bobby Witt Jr. and Salvador Perez. Still need a few guys to hit for average and pick things up, and Garcia needs to kind of get back to where he was early. But I am not really disappointed that much with the last 17-game stretch. Going 6-11 is decent against that stretch. Maybe you steal 1 or 2 more games the other direction, and you're looking at 8-9 or something, and going just about 500, which is, I think, what you can ask for. But I think the other thing that we've started to notice as we're entering into these summer months, the offense around the league's picking up, the long balls are picking up, and the Royals aren't quite necessarily that power team. They've hit for a little bit more power this year, but as we're seeing teams around the league just start cranking out shot after shot, gives me a little bit of concern, just because of playing at home in Kansas City. It's not a long ball stadium, but really not a lot I can complain about. I think the next question I was going to ask with you is, how concerned should we be that some of these injuries are starting not just to pile up, but we're starting to see a few of these injuries take effect? It starts with Michael Massey going out several weeks back. Haven't had him back yet. He was really starting to pick things up and becoming a solid third, fourth bat in the lineup that we didn't have at the time. So you're missing his little bit of power at second and his consistency. Now we got Hunter Renfroe having a little bit of issue with his toe. Waka went on the injured list. Alec Marsh dealt with a little bit of injury and came back. How concerned are you with some of these injuries, just the timing of them starting to pop up here in June against, again, some of the better teams in the league?
Yeah, I'm not super stressed about it. Injuries are going to happen, and so far the Royals have really been pretty lucky with that. I mean, they have currently 3 guys that are contributors not playing, but all 3 of them, again, they've been real weird about Massey. So that, I guess that's the one that's a little concerning. Like, when it first happened, they were like, could just be, the 10 days. And now I think we're almost a month later, and we still really haven't got a lot of news. So there's a little concern there. Renfro's toe could be a little longer term too. It just kind of depends on him because I think Judge with his toe injury missed 3 months last year. But part of that when you injure the big toe is a little bit of pain management in yourself. And for someone like Aaron Judge, why would you risk your entire career off a toe injury? Meanwhile, Hunter Renfro's at the end of it may be willing. I don't know enough about that side of it to know when Hunter's going to be back. And then Walker's throwing simulated games. He's probably going to be back here in a week or two. You got Chris Bubic. She's probably going to be back in 3 weeks to a month. So there's optimism around everyone. There's no one man out for the season or won't see them until September. So I'm okay with where we're at. They're going to happen. There's going to be a couple more at some point. I think we all can think of, there's a couple key guys that it can't happen too long term, but for the most part, they should be able to weather injuries like the ones they've sustained so far.
Yep, and they've had guys step up. I mean, Kyle Isbell took that rocket off the face
Mm-hmm.
and missed a couple of games. And honestly, Dairon Blanco's looked pretty solid with extended at bats the last couple of weeks. And a buddy of mine were talking about him. He's like, maybe the Royals should find ways to get him involved more because it seems like every game he plays in, he is on base and getting a steal or a run. But they've been able to manage it. Daniel Lynch hasn't had the best of outings when he's spared Alec Marsh or Michael Wacha the last few weeks. And we'll talk about that here in a second. And some of the bullpen guys have been up and down, moving around, taking a night or two off. It's funny, the bullpen, everyone was complaining about how bad the bullpen was for the month of May, end of May. Month of June, honestly, the bullpen outside of maybe 2-3 games, the bullpen's been pretty solid. Will Smith, I think, went 17 straight innings or something like that of 1 run or less or no run, something like that. A pretty decent outing. Stratton's been a little rocky. But some of those other guys, like the addition of Sam Long coming up, Sam Long's looked really good. Zerpa's been solid as a reliever. The bullpen's actually been pretty decent, and I know bullpen's one that's going to fluctuate throughout the year as guys come up, guys go out. Hernandez will be back at some point. Jake Brentz will be back at some point. What's your take been on how the bullpen has developed over the last 2 months?
Yeah, I think the concern with the bullpen is fair because they don't strike anyone out like that, and everyone knows that, and so there's going to be a lot of fluctuation in that, and it is really concerning to me that they can't do that. And at the end of the day, do you want Will Smith and Chris Stratton as your guys though that throwing 92? I don't really MacArthur. Couldn't pitch around Julio, but pitched around Matt Moore and freaking Mitch Garver in that game that the Royals lost on Sunday. So there's a lot of things that they just don't do well enough that, there is a big concern there for me because it's not bad enough to where I think they are going to prevent the Royals from getting to the postseason, but it's bad enough to where once they get there, it's going to be quick. That bullpen is not going to be, high leverage situation and you need a K. Who do you turn to? Who do you turn to? There's no one on this team, and that's when you go against the guys like Adley Rutschman and Gunnar Henderson and Julio Rodriguez who are going to make a play in the playoffs if those are the teams you're playing. So that's where my concern is right now.
Yeah, and I think those are the types of teams that worry me because Baltimore, New York, they've got a deep lineup. Basically 1 through 8, 1 through 9 on any given night. You're concerned about. It's like right now with the Yankees, if you're going Soto, Judge, Stanton, who do you pitch to? You've got 3 guys. Even Stanton, who strikes out a ton, is mashing right now. But you go Judge, Soto, who are both hitting over 300. Soto's getting close to 20 home runs now. Who in the bullpen do you feel confident if the Royals have a 1-run lead can go out there in a series against the Yankees and get through that? And right now, I don't think we really have that swing and miss type stuff coming out of the bullpen. Carlos Hernandez has the heat for sure.
No movement.
But no movement. Hasn't been consistent. Jake Brentz, I thought before his injury, looked like a guy that could be something like that, but who knows what he'll be like after he gets back up here. Will Klein has some insane heat, but again, he's very young and raw and hasn't had a lot of time against, quality batters yet to really prove if he's capable. I mean, even MacArthur went through a good stretch. The general had his solid stretch, and not that he's been bad at all the last couple of weeks, but he hasn't had a lot of opportunity with the way the games have been to go out and do it. It's been a lot of Chris Stratton, Nick Anderson, and unfortunately, those two guys that we brought in the offseason just haven't quite lived up to par per se. So that kind of leads me to my next question of looking around the league, a couple more weeks in, there's some teams that are starting to fall off, and there's been a lot of talk with guys like the White Sox and the Marlins and some of these teams that are just really falling down the standings here. Are there any guys around the league right now you feel like could be a realistic option to start targeting as a bullpen addition over the summer?
There are for sure, but before we get into them, I did want to bring up like Bubic's injury and how he looks coming back up is going to be that could be the biggest addition to the bullpen, and not Chris Bubic specifically, because I don't think he throws hard enough to really be that guy. I think that's where he will start when he's ready. He'll probably be a bullpen guy. But I would love if Chris in August and September show that he can give you 5-6 innings of good ball, because then you know what you can do? You can put Brady Singer or Alec Marsh. Pick your pick. Because Brady Singer, yeah, we know he has his ups and downs, but you throw him in the pen and that sinker becomes 96 in that slot. You only have to go face 3 to 4 batters. That's dirty. You throw Alec Marsh for an inning, that 97 becomes 99. Like that, honestly, that could be the easiest fix for the bullpen, because you could still go, if you're going to only pick one of them, and whichever one you don't pick, you still go Reagans, Lugo, Waka, and then pick the one you don't pick. So you still have a good rotation with adding that electric stuff in the bullpen. So that's my first thing. It needs Bubic. It requires Bubic to be good, or Daniel Lynch to figure it out, which I think we've all kind of had that ship sail a little bit, but that's my number one way to help fix the bullpen.
I do like that too. I think I don't remember if we talked about it on an episode or if it was just us talking. Because I think Vern's mentioned it a couple times post game. Alec Marsh to the bullpen, because he's got some swing and miss stuff. He's looked really solid with the strikeouts. Singer's the interesting one to me. I don't know how to evaluate him. He's got good talent, but he's been inconsistent. He'll look really good for a game or two, and then it'll be a 6-inning outing, but he's got 3 or 4 walks, gives up 7 hits, 4 runs. And then the next night he's got, 8 to 9 strikeouts and looks real good. And I'm wondering if with him, is it, that third time through the order, like a lot of pitchers, you get to that third time through the order, your velocity is down a little bit because you're getting up there in pitches. And you don't have enough deception. And I think with Singer, for me, the frustration is he hasn't developed that many pitches. Yeah. Like the other night, Alec Marsh, I think on the broadcast, they said by the third inning, Alec Marsh had thrown like 6 different pitches, and Singer basically throws 2.
Yeah.
And he's developed a third pitch in the offseason, but really doesn't use it. It's that sinker slider looking pitch, and that's about all he throws. And that, to me, is more evident in someone in the bullpen, a guy that's got 1 to 2 really solid pitches that he can get you out on, but he only has to do it in short stints. So that could be interesting. I would feel disappointed if Singer did go to the bullpen because of the expectations he had early on in his career. But, now we're 3 or 4 years in, and it's really about what's best to win. So I think that's very interesting. I would rather see Marsh as the starter in that scenario and Singer in the bullpen, just because Marsh has been able to go relatively deep consistently this year. And I think he's got some good momentum on the side. But I like that.
Singer still has better numbers than Marsh on the year if you want to go by that way. But I think the Royals personally would probably lean more towards Marsh, solely because in this scenario, that means Bubic is pitched well, as we established. So that way you have Reagans under control, Bubic, Marsh. The Royals are still going to want to highlight Singer as a starter as long as that's sustainable, because then they can trade him in November, December this offseason. So I think once you say Brady Singer's going to go to the bullpen, his offseason value diminishes a little bit. Yeah. Unless he's electric, unless he's unless the Royals get to the ALCS and Brady Singer's the 9th man, the closer on that team.
The Wade Davis effect.
Yeah. That's the only way that the value doesn't increase as much. But yeah, so I think the Royals, even if Marsh is pitching a little better at that point, I think they'd still pick Marsh to go in just from that factor alone. But anyway, back to the main question on who should they add.
Before to add, any other guys at the lower levels that you see as a possible bringing up that would have an impact that we haven't talked about?
I know everyone really wants to see Pennington, and I'm in that boat too. He has a high K per nine. Like the kid deserves a chance, especially with with his strengths and the flaws of this bullpen. I like get him up here. Let's see what they've got. My only concern is he also throws 92, 93. He's not your Will Klein throwing 97, 98, 99. So like, how much is that going to translate the swing and miss stuff for a young guy? Like it may eventually translate, but I don't think it's going to be immediate, because it's easy to dot the corners, and that's not easy to do that, but it's easy to get AAA guys out by the deception and dotting the corners and that stuff. It's a lot harder to do that to big league hitters. So I have a little concern there, but kid has definitely deserved a shot. Colin Selby, who is coming off the IL, I think he's really interesting because I think he's got really good stuff. He just hasn't commanded it well. In his major league career. So he's another K guy that I think should get another look at some point just from the stuff alone. But again, all these names I'm saying aren't household names, aren't guys that are going to change the scope of the bullpen. But that's kind of where I'm at looking at other pieces that they should acquire. Like I'm not looking at Tanner Scott. I'm not looking for the Marlins. I'm not looking at Michael Kopech from the White Sox because I think you're going to have to give up too much, and I don't know how much they're really going to help. Like Kopech's numbers are not good, and like Tanner Scott's numbers, traditional numbers like ERA and stuff are fine, but like his FIP, his fielding independent pitching, is really high. I mean, he's been getting a little lucky. His K per nine isn't as high as it's been. Like, are you going to want to pay the asking price for that guy with that the Marlins are going to be asking and maybe not get the results? I personally don't. So I kind of went like, there's another guy on the Marlins. His name is Andrew Nardi. His ERA is over 5, but he's got a 12 K per nine and a FIP under 3, meaning the Marlins defense has been killing him out there.
Yeah.
So he's been striking people out. He's just been getting unlucky. So like the cost to get someone like him is significantly lower than Tanner Scott on that team. And you would still maybe get the same production plus swing and miss it. Like those are the kind of moves I want the Royals to make right now. Get those. Go give up some AA player for a reliever. That's kind of where I'm at.
I do like the fact that the Royals are, at least from the media's perspective, considered teams of interest in guys like this, because it shows if those are real legitimate conversations they're having, it shows that they do want to improve. But I don't want to get in a bidding war. I mean, we're not. Right. I don't think if we were maybe 10 games higher up in the standings, and it's like, all right, we feel legitimately solid that we can compete with Baltimore, New York to do something, then all right, maybe we got to sell off something to really put the bullpen over the edge. But I think we're still trying to find ourselves a little bit, and I don't know if I want to sacrifice long term just because right now they're playing well. I still think we have a playoff contention type team, but if you're gonna if those are the two guys that are on the market right now, well, how many teams need a quality back end reliever? So there's going to be a lot of competition and high asking price. So yeah, I don't think there's going to be a significant move unless there's something under the radar we're not thinking about that it's been long talks on, and the Royals have to package 2 to 3 mid-level guys and go after. I know they just I don't think it's going to impact the bullpen, but I know they just moved on from Logan Porter, which little surprised that it was just all right, we'll figure out the details later, just take him. Which I get, there was not a lot of opportunity for him at the AAA level, and he's a guy that needs the at-bats because he's been performing really well, and there's no path for him to get playing time at the major league level. But that would have been a piece you probably could have packaged with 1 or 2 other guys to go get somebody. But yeah, I don't know if there's really that bullpen guy right now, unless there's somebody that is looking decent on a bad team that is just going under the radar. The Angels, not a good team. Oakland's not a really good team right now, so maybe you can sneak something in there. I actually had someone ask me about this, and I don't know where your take is on this, so I'm kind of interested. What about bringing back Lopez? The Mets got rid of him. Could be a cancer in the locker room, but
he was just picked up That I was,
He
I
was?
was,
Okay.
yeah, I was with you on that, and he's not a cancer. I mean, anybody that's
As
ever,
I know, he's just frustrated that they suck.
yeah, the Cubs brought him on. He's
They
in
did,
the
okay.
minors for the Cubs. But no, I was on that, and those are the kind of players they need to look at. I actually, that's funny you bring up the Mets because there's 3 guys on the Mets I want, all I think on expiring contracts, all a little older. I think Adam Ottavino, again, ERA over
Yep.
5, cheap, 37 years old, but high K per 9, lower FIP. So like with the Royals, and again, I know FIP is getting a little nerdy for some of you out there, fielding independent pitching. And we don't need to break down that stat, but the baseline of it is the better your defense is, the better your numbers are going to look. And that's going to be
Yeah.
closer to what your numbers are supposed to look like. So the Royals have a great, incredible defense. So if I look, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at K per 9 and FIP, thinking that at some level that's going to translate with Kyle Isbell out there in center and with Bobby and Michael on the left side. So like, that's where I'm at. And I don't know if has a decent fit. Jake Diekman, who played on the Royals a little
Yep.
bit, he played on a postseason Rays team last year. Little wild, high K per 9, lower FIP than his numbers suggest. And then Drew Smith is a little interesting. He's not a guy that probably most people know. I think his contract is expiring as well. He's actually got pretty decent numbers all the way around. I think he might be even the cheapest to grab out of these 3 just because there's not the name recognition. But he has a K per 9 over 10, good numbers. So like, go call the Mets and grab one of their guys. Like they're not competing this year. They're going to try to sell. And I think all 3 of those guys would be relatively cheap.
Yeah, I think that's the type of move you have to go after. I think the only difficult thing, I wouldn't say it's difficult, but somewhat of a challenge is if you go and make a move like that, who are the guys on the 40 man that you make that
Right.
corresponding move for? So who's worth letting go of? And I see there's probably 2 or 3 guys that are DFA candidates, but
Mm-hmm.
someone would have to get bumped in order to bring him in. How about on the offensive side? We talked several weeks back about outfield production still not quite being there between Melendez and Renfroe, not holding it down yet. Velasquez is starting to get going now. The temperature's heating up, and he's not just hitting home runs, but he's finding ways to get hits and sprinkle things throughout the outfield. Freddie Fermin's been a solid bat in the lineup now as another place to find some production. What's the deal with Melendez though? I mean, he's had some clutch moments, and then he just looks awful. But defensively, he's such a strong outfielder for us right now that you can't just take him out of the lineup completely. But he's definitely not performing at a place where I would say he's worthy of consistent at bats right now,
Right.
offensively.
Yeah. And man, it sucks because MJ played so well after the All-Star break last year and then started the first 2 weeks off so hot. It was like, oh man, he's here. He's going to be that 750 to 800 OPS guy. Like he's going like, and that's just not the case. But I still think the best version of this team is with MJ. Like MJ's chemistry in that clubhouse is incredible. Like, and I know that we all look at the numbers on the stats. So me talking about this is like hard to put into numbers on how much it means. But like, regardless of who you bring in, if you have to get rid of MJ or MJ's role diminished or he goes down to AAA or whatever, like that chemistry that he has, like with Vinny, with Bobby especially, like that guy they bring in is not going to have that. And so that's a little concerning because we all know that that's a huge part. Like, again, it's hard to quantify it. It's hard to really explain it, but we've all seen what those clubhouses look like. That's the 2014-15 Royals to a T.
Yeah.
That's why they overperform so well. That's why there's no superstars because of how well they got all together and played for each other. So I'm a little worried about that wrinkle effect with MJ. But still, the numbers do support them expanding on that. So
Yeah.
I don't know what they can do there. Like we can throw out some names. I don't know if any of them are worth outside of like a Taylor Ward or a Luis Robert or someone that you're going to have to spend a little bit for. I don't know if there's a name out there that like quantifies making the move. Like okay, sure, we technically we upgrade if we went out and got Brian De La Cruz or someone like that.
Yeah.
But like is the 100 points difference in OPS, but worse defense worth the what did you give up and the ripple through the clubhouse? I don't know. So I'm still a little bit. I want the bullpen moves to happen now. I'm
Yeah.
still on a let's wait after the All-Star break for the bat kind of thing.
Yeah. I think there's enough on this 26-man roster to get by. I mean, yes, it'd be great if Melendez was hitting at least 210, just 210.
Yeah.
But if he has these clutch moments, as long as he's not having a negative impact day after day in the batter's box, where he's coming up in a big moment and doing nothing. Like I think outside of that, there's enough between um, Fermin being that strong, consistent guy who's getting a lot more at bats, or he's playing more every day. So that's putting Salvi at DH first base. So they're not having to play all the outfielders as much. So maybe you can rotate in Velasquez a little bit more as he's starting to get better. I also think Hampson doesn't do anything crazy, but Hampson's hitting over 300 right now, and he's finding ways to get on base. So I think you can spare 3-4 games a week if you need to, of some sort of rotation of Adam Frazier, Garrett Hampson, Blanco, and even Isbell's look decent at times in that spot. And I think you really just need guys to have an impact, whether that's hitting a guy over, bunting a guy over, sprinkling a hit up the left field line to get somebody to move from first to third or something like that. As long as they're having small ways to make an impact, I'll still take the defense like you're saying there, because the Royals have a plus 59 run differential. And even though the 4 best teams at the top of baseball are in the triple digits, the Royals are the next batch of teams. Them and the Brewers are I think that second tier of teams that are up there. And it's because their defense is so solid. There's a lot of guys that have high, run saves. Freddie Fermin's actually been a better catcher this year than I would have given him credit for. Renfroe and Melendez have absolute cannons in the outfield. And of course, with that middle infield's been solid. I think when Massey gets back, we'll still see some of that too. I think Massey's gotten a lot better. So I think there's enough there, especially if Massey gets healthy and is back in the lineup consistently, and you're keeping Salvi fresh between him and Vinny at first base, rotating around, and Velasquez starts one. I think there's enough there to feel good enough. But yeah, if Melendez starts getting to the point where he's got 2 runners on and it's strikeout, ground out, pop out consistently, I think there's a lot more concern there. But all the fans out there that say, hey, we need to package Melendez to go get somebody. He's not a good enough offensive threat for somebody to go get him. If somebody wants a rotational 4th, 5th defensive outfielder, maybe, but what are you going to get back for that? You're not going to get back anything of worth. You're better off just seeing if he can fight through it. Maybe he takes takes a week off, kind of like he did last year with the All-Star break, to refocus. Maybe a guy like Drew Waters being up here puts a little bit of pressure on him if Waters starts to perform, and I wouldn't expect that to be long-term either. But I think there's enough there. The rest of the lineup, if your core guys of Garcia at the top with Bobby and Vinny and Salvi are doing their thing, Fermin's getting a couple good looks every single week, and you can sprinkle it in with Velasquez. And then Massey gets back. That's 6-7 guys that are doing enough that I think you can handle the 2 to 3 other guys that are average,
right,
or currently below average.
Right. Yeah, you're getting production from your catcher and shortstop that other teams wish they could get. So that does hide some of the flaws in the outfield.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't mind seeing a little bit more Blanco early in the games. Get him some at bats early. See if we can get him on base earlier in the game to steal a run or steal a couple bags. And then as we get into the bullpen, and you need a little bit better defense because the bullpen struggled a little bit more, Melendez comes in later in the game, which is, I guess, apparently where Melendez has done better, is in the clutch time at the end of the game anyway. But I don't know. I'm not too worried about it just yet. If Renfroe can come back and start heating up a little bit as he's been the last couple of weeks and finally slowly improving his at bats, and I think we'll be fine.
Yeah, Renfroe's average starts with the 2 now. Like, if Renfroe comes back, I just need Renfroe to be a power threat. I don't really care where his average is as long as he's hitting homers and doubles occasionally throughout the week. Same goes for MJ. And so, again, the road numbers are terrible. He's actually decent at home. I think he's hitting like 260 at home or something like that. So just get going on the road a little bit. Had a single and a walk last night. Just start to build off those numbers, and we'll see where he's at. So I know it's the number one thing fans, probably more so than the bullpen, the number one thing fans get frustrated with is MJ Melendez. I just think he's too talented. I don't know how much better there really is out there at this current point in the Royals price range. So it's like, might as well cheer him on and just hope he clicks like he did at the second half of last year.
Yeah, I'm good with that. Last thing I have before we get out of here. Where would you put Bobby Witt right now as far as best overall player in MLB? Where does he rank for you?
Man, that's tough. I've been saying it. He's top 10 conservatively, top 5 probably is how I have been saying it. Because that's where he is. Like, I think you take Aaron Judge, I think you take Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani, and then you really can start to have a discussion. I think. I mean, Juan Soto is great, but he doesn't do the things in the field and on the base paths Bobby does. Gunnar Henderson's great, but he strikes out and he's not as good of a defender. He's not nearly as fast. Like there's those other guys. I think as far as complete players go, I think you have to I think Bobby might be in that 4 spot. Now we can
I think
argue.
he's top 5.
Yeah. Like Ronald Acuna, he's not playing right now, but he wasn't playing super well. I know he's coming off an MVP year. He wasn't playing to the level Bobby's playing right now. Like, it's tough. Everybody that knows me knows I am a big Bryce Harper guy. That's my guy. He's not doing what Bobby's doing right now. Like I really think that Bobby might be the 4th best player in baseball.
Yep. Bobby's leading the American League in batting average at 325, just behind those 2 guys out in San Diego who just dominate with dink and dump hits and Arias and Profar. But yeah, Bobby's top in the American League in batting average. He's got the most hits in the American League at 93, again, just behind Luis Arias at 96. So he's on pace for 200 plus hits. He's 19 stolen bases, which is 2nd in the American League. I don't have the full batting
leading in runs,
Yeah, I don't have all of them pulled up here, but I know he's top 5 in on base percentage, top 10 in slugging percentage, and he's just doing everything. And of course he's got the defensive prowess. So yeah, we have an emerging star. It is a great time in Kansas City to have arguably obviously the best player in the NFL in Patrick Mahomes. And now we can start having the conversation of, do the Royals have the best all-around player in Major League Baseball? Judge is off to a fantastic season. And I don't know how you can compete with what Judge is doing, because not only is he mashing home runs, he's hitting above 310,
and he's playing center.
Playing center, he's not striking out a ton. He hasn't missed a lot of time yet. So I think those are my 2 guys for AL MVP. It's hard not to put Gunnar Henderson in there too, just because the Orioles are so good. But I think Gunnar has the benefit of he's got 5 other guys behind him that can hit a home run at any given at bat. So it takes some pressure off him at the leadoff spot. But yeah, Bobby Witt Jr. is for sure up there. I think he's still top 4 in AL MVP voting right now. I think it'll take the Royals winning the division for him to actually get it, unless he just continues his tear and the other guys kind of slide back. But he's a special one. So if you haven't gone out and watched him at the K this year, you need to, but get on that train now, because Bobby Witt is very quickly overtaking, not just locally, but nationally, the conversation of one of the best players in the league. And that's saying a lot, because there are some really good stars in the league right now. I mean, for this series right now, Royals Dodgers, you've got Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman on one side. I mean, Teoscar Hernandez has been really good. Will Smith.
Yamamoto's pitching tonight.
Yeah, you've got a lot of stars. So tonight, another good matchup for the Royals. Hopefully, they can take at least one game out of this series and just be competitive. Last night, great game. Gave it up. Bullpen gives it up late. But again, you're going up against 2 of the best hitters in baseball with Ohtani and Betts, and they find a way to get it done late. So that'll wrap it up here. We'll probably do another Royals episode here in a couple weeks as we get into All-Star game, and then of course ahead of time before the trade deadline, and if anything else comes up. But thanks again for joining us on this one. Again, you guys hit that like and subscribe button below for us. Help us continue to grow. Send the podcast to a friend. That would help us out a lot. We got a lot of great things still going on, so make sure you check us out on all of our platforms at KCSA Pod. That'll do it for this one. We'll catch you guys in the next episode.